Welcome back to this last session. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. We built this city on rock and roll. What a perfect song for this session, right? What we're going to do is something that I've been fascinated with over the last year or two as we worked with some of the large Knime customers. We've discovered that there's a little bit of a recipe coming out when it comes to growing usage across the organization. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to have my 4 panelists come up here on stage. Thank you very much. Big round of applause. And before we get started, let me just go through and make sure I can introduce each person very briefly. David is from ICL. Now, I'm a chemical engineer, so I know what ICL is, but maybe you don't. So let me just say, it's one of the largest organizations in the world for minerals, fertilizers, metals. They do agriculture, they do food additives, they do lots and lots and lots of things that you probably don't even know about every day. The most important thing for me is we're talking about 12,000 employees all over the world. So obviously, a lot of people that we can reach. David, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Next, I've got Sven. And Sven is with Bosch, like a Bosch. I don't think we actually have to talk about Bosch an awful lot. Everybody knows it's an absolutely huge organization. Sven, you win the number today, 420,000 employees all over the world. It's out of their annual report. So we're also talking about a lot of people who might be able to use data. So Sven, thank you for coming. I will say, Sven has the coolest title on the planet. Knime Product and Service Owner. Isn't that cool? I like it.
That's correct.
We're gonna patent that one. Okay, and then I've got Sebastian. And Sebastian is, once again, from a company that everybody should know, Audi. And nobody has to say anything about Audi. Everybody knows. But what's interesting is they also have 90,000 employees all over the world. So once again, lots of potential people to use and abuse analytics. So thank you very much for coming, Sebastian.
Thanks for having me.
And last but not least, we decided to do something just a little different. I've got Heiko down there from KPMG, and you think, oh, KPMG. But he's bringing with 2 hats because he did come from a large commercial organization that was using Knime. He's now in KPMG, and of course now taking a look, working with customers about some of the challenges they have. So thanks again for coming, Heiko. Our panel. Now I'm going to give each one of them the same starting point. Here's the question for you. When you got started with all of this with Knime, what was your philosophy? What sort of problem were you trying to solve? Why are you doing this, David?
Well, we started off like about 5 years ago, and we wanted to bring a solution as a no-code platform for citizen data scientists. We want to upskill them into data science and do it in scale. So then I was looking for the right platform that will bring this into speed. And after looking into several options, selected Knime as the one who's most intuitive and, of course, open source in mind. That helped a lot to push that into the organization.
Okay, thanks, David. Going on to you, Sven. Tell me a little bit, what got all of this going?
Yeah, it was actually 2 years ago where we started Knime, where we started to run Knime on a large scale at Bosch. But I'm pretty sure before a lot of our employees already used the Knime API without having this kind of central governance we now have. So they just use it, and we from the central IT department came across and then just professionalized this even more with Knime Server. So this is what we actually did. And it was like that, and that 2 years ago there was the Central Data Lake initiative, where we decided to build up a data lake at Bosch even 3 years ago. And actually we looked for a very flexible analytics tool, also with low code, but also with coding capabilities inside. And yeah, we decided to go for Knime, and this is how the process started with Knime, actually. Yeah.
Okay, Sebastian, we're hearing some of the same things. You probably have a little bit of the same stories. Anything about the problem you were trying to solve?
For us, it started a little bit earlier. It
Okay.
started 11 years ago, roughly. And we were trying to solve data mining, or to find a tool that enabled us to actually mine data. And by looking for tools, we also tried to fill in a gap between seeing people only working with spreadsheets and others being able to actually program. And this is probably what we have in common, something that is low code and that sits neatly between these two.
Okay. Heiko, your thoughts?
Oh, a lot. In general, I have 3 areas if I think about Knime. The first is how to develop an organization to bring digitalization ahead. Second, how to ensure efficiency, transparency, all the things you need in your daily life. And the third is how to also ensure IT compliance, because I'm from the tax area. Sorry, I have to deal with tax law, and there's some regulations you have to keep in mind. And I think with Knime you can achieve a lot and can develop your organization and upskill your people and become fast in what you're doing. That's my believing.
Okay. Let's focus a little bit about the people, the process, and some of the things that you've encountered. Because let's face it, you're all Knime users. We all love it. We're the Knime user group. We agree that's part of the recipe. So thank you very much. I wasn't expecting that, but thank you. What I'm interested in is think back, if you can think back to the early days, because a lot of the organizations here have a few pockets of Knime users. How did you start going about getting people aware of each other, maybe interested in joining together? Sven?
Yeah, maybe first of all, one of the success factors was really that the Knime AP, the analytics platform, is kind of open source and also free to use. So, yeah, as I just said, even before an organization, Knime was already a tool that was established, but we did not know about the customers in the first hand. But then we built up the community and had a great exchange. And we have also some kind of users really also help each other. So this is really, really a great thing. We have kind of channels in our community. One of them is called Ask the Experts. And surprisingly, so we as a service team, I'm the product and service owner of Knime for Bosch globally, so for potentially a lot of employees, you just mentioned this. And but oftentimes our champions, our real Knime power users, help our own customers, our internal customers. Often they help them much quicker than we can actually do with our team. So this is great. So we have a lot of Knime champions out there who are also willing to help each other. So this is really a great development we have here at Bosch. And they are all very enthusiastic about Knime, and they want to share and help each other. So this is really great at Bosch. Yeah.
So, David?
Well, as I mentioned before, when we started off with the CDS group, it was more like trainings, and we went to the engineers in the operational side. When we wanted to go to the business, and we started with sessions that talk about what we can do with AI and what we can do. And then we found out that a lot of the analysts are struggling with spreadsheets.
Yeah.
So then we started off by going to more and more groups in the business and telling them that we can replace the spreadsheets with Knime. And we did a lot of sessions like that to kind of discovery and showing them the abilities and actually kind of buying into those locations. And then based on that, we started off with trainings to those analysts in order to drive by themselves to be self-proficient with Knime.
Okay.
A lot of what you explained is pretty similar to what we also encountered in the early days. What we've seen for us is that you really need people. In the first step, you really need people that are willing to come along on that ride and who understand that there is a gap and that they have a pain that Knime solves. And that's fairly easy. We saw 2 groups. One group was data scientists, people that are actually looking to deploy their algorithms. And the other group was those business analysts that are trying or that are working on Excel files and trying to automate stuff. And those are actually pretty difficult or pretty separate groups that you need to take care of, and one group needs different tools than the other ones, but at the end, if you bring them together, and if you tell the data scientist, by the way, if you use Knime, then it's easier for you to get access to the data, to do the pre-processing, then the other group will also join in and say, oh, I also know Knime, I know how to pre-process my data, you can do the next steps, you can do the data mining afterwards.
It sounds like all the three of you so far are talking a little bit about the fact that you target different internal groups with different offerings. So how you introduce it, the benefits you're going to talk to them, of course, are going to be different, whether they're an Excel user or a more advanced user or a Power BI or a data science or something. Heiko, what's your experience?
I really like the statement, honestly speaking, because it's about sender and receiver, who you're speaking with.
Yeah.
What is the pain they have, the problems they have, the priorities they have. So in my old life, working in industry, we have the C-level, the head-offs. So if I go really detailed in the functionality of Knime, it would be not of interest. But you maybe have to find out what's the problem. It's cost savings, efficiency, transparency, creating a new service. What is the problem? And on the other hand side, the employees, you have to convince them. What's in for me?
Yeah.
And this is a method I used, is a kind of monthly sharing. Have a session where I spoke a half hour about ongoing IT projects, what tools I use, what is the experience, what worked, what not worked. Then the second part was about general technology, which I available, which can be used directly in a daily life. Also asking people to share the experience. And then you get a better concrete feeling what's the benefit for me. In the consulting, it's totally different. I would say, insofar that you speak with somebody, you have to convince and to understand their problem. And company to company is different. So you have first to understand their situation and then to find out what could be the solution. And Knime is a pretty good one.
Yeah. I want to add maybe.
Yeah?
I found out that after we were training those CTS engineers, and we started, I was like talking to several of them and asking them, that you can do with Knime this and this automation part of your spreadsheets, for example. And they didn't, it was not automatically coming into mind. And that is why part of either the training and also the publishing of the PRs that we are doing is, look, you can do both. And I'll go into those trainings of the CDS trainings and telling them, there are also other trainings for Knime data wrangling, and you can do all this stuff. Bear that in mind in order to achieve it.
I'm going to ask a little bit of a loaded question because I picked up on a little bit of something you guys were talking about just beforehand. And it's when you get people interested and they come in, it's not just a 3-hour presentation, is it? You all have ways. What do you do to really get them going?
Build.
Hands-on.
You have to build workflows.
Hands-on.
You have to touch. You have to touch something that they already know, which is, I think it's a good start, but it's only one way to do things. So you maybe grab a workflow, not a Knime workflow, but a traditional data workflow they have somewhere else. You grab that one, you rebuild it in Knime. You can set the stopwatch. You make them watch what you're doing, see how easy it is. Of course, it is not easy for someone who's new to Knime and has, first of all, to understand the nodes. But it's easy to understand how simple it becomes once you are a little bit more efficient with that tool. The other thing is to show them what is not in their realm yet. So you can also build things that are impossible with the tools they have at their hands until then.
Okay. So this hands-on is really as quickly as possible for the different audiences, hands-on. What's your experience?
Yeah, what also works very well every time is that, so if somebody has a problem, then they can also start kind of Googling it in the community hub, search for it, and then they have a workflow they can start building on and solving their problem. So this is also what maybe more advanced Knime users often do, but yeah, so if you have something you want to solve, then just go to community hub and look for a workflow that is maybe similar, or a workflow that maybe already does what you want to do, and then you can just use it. So reusable, reusable is also kind of a common pattern, I would say, and just reuse what's already there in the community hub.
I would emphasize maybe the first look of people to Knime, and I think yesterday people were talking about the first shock they could have when they see Knime analytical platform. So usually in the first presentations when I only talk about results. I only talk about what you can do. I show results. I start here, I end here. And only when I bring them I have a buy-in, and I bring them into a course where they are like in mind, they want to be trained with Knime. And after 1 to 2 hours, no, not more than that, they actually play with the tool, then everything is understood and clear.
Yeah.
I have a multi-step answer on the speaking. First of all, I like the hands-on because, you know, in consulting, everybody is expecting a PowerPoint from my side, but I also really do directly Knime hands-on because I can have a 3-hour speech with my PowerPoint. They will forget 2 hours later.
Yeah.
They will not forget the experience they have with the mouse. Okay, but I would say for a company experience, it's also about showing concrete cases which are belonging to them. If somebody is working in an area, I took a problem of this area and solve it with him or for him, that you really see the benefits, and also thinking cross-functional, inviting maybe also people from other departments who are delivering data, say, hey, if you work together this way, it could become much easier for you. And then you'll have the first step in the community.
Yeah.
And this is then growing. My experience.
I was going to talk a little bit about the community. So, you know, we focused on the early users. You know, we've got data science specialists, and they like tools, but we can prove to them why Knime might be good. We've got our data analysts, our business users who we're trying to get out of spreadsheet hell. We've talked a little bit. When do you start exposing them to each other?
Basically from the day one on. So
really?
Yeah, so it's I recommend always to be part of our Knime community, and this always works out well, I think.
Okay. Because you have a community, so that would be one of your recommendations. Then is try to get some sort of a community going in some form as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
What's your experience?
Since usually the first people in a company to start using Knime and to start spreading the word are not the ones that are having 100% of their time at their hand only to learn Knime, to propagate that elsewhere. It is very, very efficient if you early on start using everyone you know, everyone who's also using Knime. Let them talk to one another, let them solve their problems, because, I mean, we don't know everything that's possible in Knime. And so, yeah, that's a speed up.
It's really a
pretty
speed up thing.
Essential.
Yeah. When you're talking to these people and they get started with Knime, how do you go about making sure that they continue, or that they build skills, or they build as much as they want and not too much more? You know what I'm trying to say? Because obviously some Excel people they'll learn some ETL, they'll learn some exploratory, and they're absolutely they love it and they want to stop there. But there's others that start wanting to creep forward. Do you control that? Do you help them? Do you nurture? What do you do?
Well, I believe that first of all, it's kind of connected to the previous about the community, having a community. And it is important that people will be knowing about each other. So you always have like the power users, or the one that really know much about the platform and about Knime. And so basically, based on that, you can first of all identify those that wants more, and based on new sharing of new ideas and new knowledge that you put on that community, so everyone are shared with it.
Yeah.
Basically, that is one way. And the others, of course, it's exposing them to new kind of training, new kinds of courses that they can take and get to be more skilled with it.
Yeah.
In this sense, also adding to community work, so we also have regular community events, so either virtually but also on site. So we will also have kind of internal a Knime conference once per year at least, and every month we have different sessions. So there are sessions like First Steps into Knime sessions, where we get kind of newbies onboarded on Knime, or at least show the potential. But we have also kind of more advanced and expert sessions. So, for example, we had a session for secure credential handling, sessions on how to do regression with Knime, and depending on what they are demanding. And so we also host regular events in our community, but also on site.
To first professionalize the way you qualify your employees is important, that you have regular, or at least from my perspective, from what we experience, to have regular possibilities, regular courses for people to take. But besides that, there are always these outer boundaries of the way you use Knime. You usually use Knime in a setting where it's not the only tool.
Yeah.
You have a large stack, a large IT stack, so you have to figure out where does Knime stop? So where might it not make sense to continue building Knime workflows, even though it might be fun, but also figuring out where does it need integration? So that next time someone comes up and says, okay, is there a way to, I don't know, to connect that database? You say, yeah, we solved it all. And this is where you also advance their skills of those people that are already pretty good at using Knime, but still want to push the boundaries.
But in this regard, also surprisingly, sorry, is that from central IT perspective, the perspective I have is that somebody takes care of all the integrations available, all the databases at the company, and actually, yeah, we are doing this. So this means, so if somebody wants to connect it to Hadoop, for example, they can come to us, and it's already installed we already deliver this, and this is also kind of, yeah, a success factor, I would say, that you just have it in place, and that you can at least send in documentation to a user how to use Hadoop, for example.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So maybe stepping in here, for my life, I always envisioned the server usage between systems, the server usage for sharing workflows, and also empowering people to do the local stuff. And normally it starts locally, but my vision was always the server usage. And if you do so, you have to entertain some areas. You have to have the buy-in of the management, the buy-in of IT. You have to explain to people what you think about, where could be the direction to go, and why. The why is really important. But also to teach the people about data and processes. Because the software itself, it's nice. If you don't understand the data, it will be hard.
Yes.
And there was a saying for Excel, which maybe also sometimes for Knime is correct, Excel looks always right. So if you have a process how to ensure that it's right, and if you go to the tax area, you have also the IT compliance part about documentation, testing, later audits, retention of 10 years, all the nice stuff. And you have to keep this problem away of them. You have to solve that in the background, that they do not get bothered, that they still have the positive feeling.
Yeah. So it's the idea that for a lot of that stuff, you try to package it so that they just can use it automatically. If there's GDPR compliant, you have components that they include. If there's access to certain data, you make sure that the components are available that they could use, so that there's IT alignment, but not limiting them in their own learning. That's really good. Tell me a little bit more about how that works for you. Is it a similar sort of thing, or we're interested in flavor? So any little things you can mention to people, because sometimes it's just the little things that they can do that make the difference in moving it forward.
Well, I would say regarding this that the Knime platform is like a central hub, let's say, I mean, because every organization have like several resources that they can use. It could be several cloud services. It could be several on-prem services or alike. And for us, we are using, let's say, Amazon Cloud, Azure Cloud, SAP, HANA, on-prem. And all of these services is something, each has something to offer, and Knime kind of orchestrate everything for specific applications. So at the end, it's helping us to kind of build components, relevant components that connect to SAP HANA or to Amazon Cloud and bring and consume the relevant services from there, and then being used within workflows.
Yeah. Any more tips and tricks that I've missed in terms of getting people, let's call it empowered, but also following IT guidelines, et cetera, et cetera? Anything else you guys have experienced that might help just as suggestions to the audience?
Yeah, maybe what is maybe a challenge is to serve it as a self-service, kind of the whole Knime thing. So this could be really a challenge in sense of IT. And yeah, so basically it is good that maybe everybody can deploy on a server, but also you need to take care that not anything will be interrupted from a workflow that is maybe faulty or something like that. And also therefore there needs to be a team which maintains this, or maybe also does the deployment and do checks. I think as Michael said in the keynote, you're approaching this with this new data app of deployment. Yeah, but also I have some doubts about this. If this is really a self-service, if a business analyst get then stuck in deployment processes, and really I have to fear that the business analyst never heard of deployment, or is maybe even has fear of deployment. What is deployment? It's not a software engineer, and we need to somehow ensure that they understand those processes and that they're maybe not there, those processes to deploy, and that's not so strict maybe. So, but yeah, it's the question how to implement this. Yeah.
But that's a very good point for us to take from Knime, is that we've got to do a little more work to make it easy for you to explain some of the concepts easier.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need the technical buzzwords if you're talking to DevOps, ML ops, blah, blah. But for the rest of the business users, we probably need to come up with some easier ways to sort of explain this. So that's good. More thoughts there?
Yeah, that's actually sparking something in me, because that's something where we say you can actually spend the time that the people save on, for example, not having to learn programming language by using Knime. You can spend the time on other things. You can spend the time on, for example, teaching them how does data governance work in your case? How does CrispDM work? So that the workflows themselves become more efficient, that at the end it becomes more compliant also with IT. So this is kind of a trade-off. You spend less time in building your data products, but use that time wisely for those processes.
Yeah.
I think you have to give the users freedom, at the same time in a regulated environment.
Yeah.
And I realized that in a way that I defined workflows in two categories, ICS and not ICS relevant.
What's ICS?
Internal control system. So it's everything which goes into the financial statement is ICS affected. So if you identify such workflows, you can build in the process of deploying that a false ice principle, a documentation of the tests, documentation of the functionality. You can then also document the ownership, and you have to build in the lifecycle management as well, that you have to ask every half year or every year, okay, are still owner, is it still up to date? And you have to have also implement a release management. Means if you replace a workflow by a new one because you tweaked it a little bit or things changed, that you know what used in which point of time. And if you do that the right way in an environment, the user will not see that this happens. He gets not bothered by that. And with the hub, you're going this direction. I really like it.
Yeah.
In the past, I did that with Microsoft 365.
Yeah.
So there are many ways to handle that.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the things you notice about the CDDS, we were doing a lot of this on purpose through data apps just to show the different steps.
Yeah.
And you're right, you could automate a little bit more of it. And hey, if it validated and it went through, they wouldn't even ever know. It's only when they blew up that they would then get the messages. Yeah, so very interesting. What's your thoughts about control and managing a lot of this?
Well, first of all, as some of them mentioned, within global IT, we like to at least give governance and give the services, so they will be self-service and self-proficient. In order to do that, at the end, you have to build certain components that will help them achieve that. And each and every one of those components is kind of hide away the complexity of coding and complexity of accessing databases, accessing data lake, etc. All of those, when you are hiding the complexity, then they are only focusing on data analysis.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of interesting listening to all of you here as you're cooking this recipe. We seem to have some common things coming up, but everybody's got little different ingredients there, and that's exactly what I was hoping we'd do here. Let me ask another question. It has to do with communication, and I don't mean communicating to the whole company. How do you make sure management is bought in? And I will just use the big term management, because sometimes it's departments, sometimes it's business functions, sometimes it's IT. But just any tips and tricks you can give people. How do you make sure they're bought in, or do you worry about it?
I would say we shortly answered a little bit that already. You have to understand what the management is driving.
Yeah.
And it's not only one management. You have a CEO, CFO, CIO, whatever for Cs. And you have maybe to entertain the CIO because it has to fit in the IT portfolio, in the IT strategy. Also reflect in the next 2-3 years what is coming. The CFO has maybe other purposes or other objectives. And you should be crisp about you understanding what you're doing to give an easy to understand and clear answer. And get the opportunity to give this message. This is the biggest problem, how to get the awareness that you have a big topic. And it depends a little bit where you're located, in which management grade, in which function, honestly speaking.
Yeah. What do you do?
Yeah, I would call it ironing. Like we go and meet the relevant management once in a while, once in a period, and each time we are coming with either new stuff and new projects that their workers did over the time. And basically based on that, they are getting more familiar and understanding of what it can do, and they usually, after they understand better, they really push for
So
new
that's the
projects.
ironing. You come and you iron them with good stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you guys do?
Yeah, I mean, at least as our users demand Knime, it will be there. So this is, I mean, at least as our internal customers are kind of paying us as a service provider for this, then it's fine. Then even management cannot say, we do not want to have Knime anymore.
Yeah.
So this is, I mean, but we are also in a good position that we got started with Knime. So we have Knime now running, and it is a success. And of course, user number are growing. But yeah, if it goes down, then of course we
have some work to do.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
What about you?
It's, I have to say, it's a bit of a mixture of what you already described. One thing is, for example, to show how it works, to show how it actually saves money. That's simple, because that's usually on most of these checklists that you see in management, to say, okay, do something, please, that helps the company grow. What helps here also is to actually have an example, to already have something that is built, that is running, that is saving money every day, because then it's a little bit more difficult to deviate from that afterwards. And I think what's also important is to see ahead, to look at a strategic timeline and say, okay, is it a tool that might not only help us today, but does it also, well, integrate all of these steps that we see for us as a company in the future that we want to do?
Yeah. I want to ask a general question. What do you call, I mean, we'd love it if you call it the spread of Knime. I mean, you have Knime in your title, so we like that. but that's not usually strategic. Do you call it digital? Do you call it data enablement? What are the terms that you're using? And there's no right answer. I'm just curious, what term do you use internally?
Well,
for what
first of all, yeah, digital apps, data apps, AI digital apps.
So lots with the term apps, though.
Yeah.
So to get that emphasis going on applications.
Yeah, it's important because I think around app or application, there is also one derivatives, which means that we have also product manager.
Okay.
So an app, an application, or application manager. That's the person that will drive this application, will be responsibility to keep it forward, keep it correct, publish it, use it in a certain way. So I think this is the...
And it sounds like in your organization, the term AI isn't just negative, so you do use it occasionally. I mean, so for you guys, that's not a bad thing. But the word app, that's really interesting. What do you guys call what you do? Is this digitalization? Is it...
Yeah, I mean, at Bosch, we do not have to call it other than Knime.
Whoa, that's good.
Yeah, because it's known.
2 points.
But I think important terms and concepts are definitely kind of self-service analytics, because we provide this as a self-service, and also low-code, no-code platforms. This is also something which is a common term. So yeah, and also I mean, data science is a term I personally like very much, but I think it's not so commonly used. Yeah. So yeah, but it could be a low-code data science platform is maybe also a term. Yeah, I try to establish, but it's harder, this data science thing.
Yeah. What about you?
For us, Knime is part of an advanced analytics tool stack.
Advanced analytics. Okay.
Because we say, okay, AI is probably something that is just a part of that. Yeah, you can use it in all kinds of tools and in all kinds of settings. And as you just said, it's also just not only data science. It's bigger than that, and it's used for insights. So. Advanced analytics.
Yeah, I must admit, I love the presentation this morning from BDO, where he said everybody has their job function, but everybody's going to have to learn to work with data as well. And so that's why I'm kind of interested in the terms and things. What's your opinion? What do you see out there when you work with customers? What do they want to call it?
The most used word is tool, but I don't like the word tool. But on the other hand side, it's correct, because you have a toolbox, different solutions you're using to repair, fix, or build something.
Yeah.
Insofar, it's right. But it's also part of digitalization. It's also part of the digitalization.
Digitalization, okay.
Because my understanding is to bring digitalization ahead, you have to entertain organization, environment, people, and skill setup. And the environment, it's about technology and data, where Knime can help. And for the upskilling, it's also a part because the people are learning about how to handle data, where the data get produced from which processes, which are the connection points. So I use that to achieve different objectives at the same time.
Okay. I'm going to ask one more question before I take questions from the audience. And this is one, you've all been here for the last couple of days. Some of us were sick, but now you're better, so this is good. Have you seen anything the last day or two? We've already mentioned the continuous deployment might be interesting. Is there anything there we're doing that's going to actually help you move forward? I'm just curious about what's the top one thing, not the three things, the one thing.
One.
Make it difficult.
Yeah, it's difficult. Well, I'll take just one. Just the first pick of my top of my mind, which is the moving towards the using the web kind of application. And it has a lot of
You mean the new version 5, the 5 interface?
Has several implications. It's also regarding infrastructure and the way you use it, but also how easy it is for people to, like I said, the first shock of Knime. So it's kind of reduced the gap, and it means that it can immediately start using Knime and understand it.
Jump over, just so we're not always the same. Heiko, what would you mention?
I like also the web-based application concept. I like the hub because this is answering some IT compliance issues I have to deal with because I'm also dealing with tax audits and defense positions there. But the most important of this conference for me is the networking, honestly. The exchanging of different views because I'm from a special area of tax, and maybe no one else is here from tax, or a few people only. And to see how people in other areas are solving the topics is giving me new ideas, and hopefully I gave also some new ideas. And I would like to be part further of this community. Okay,
that's good. It's something you've seen at the conference. We've mentioned two things. You want to just repeat, or is there something else that you thought of?
For me, it would be, on short term right now, it would be the visualization using Python.
Okay.
Just to be a bit techy here.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay.
Yeah, so as I saw also, many Python users, and this was surprisingly for me in the first place, but they all use also Knime, not all, but they tend to use Knime, which surprises me, but which works pretty well, and also therefore those Python integrations. So I think we're really looking forward to this at Bosch. This is kind of really a huge milestone. And also the new UI, definitely, the Knime AP5, it will be kind of a real...
Okay, I'm going to ask another question because I'm really interested. Everybody says, oh my God, it's so hard to get Python users interested, et cetera, et cetera. Tips, tricks, how would you get Python users who are used to doing Python? They're good at Python. They're all Karstens. They can code this stuff. They can push it out. They get it going. Any of you had situations where you had to convince them successfully to maybe become a part of the Knime team?
We had a couple of examples where we actually rebuild Python scripts as Knime workflows. So we took something that was Python before and rebuilt it in Knime, simply because for a couple of use cases, it makes no sense to use Python. This is something that is repetitive, that is pretty small, and only because some people only work with Python, that might not always be the best choice. And convincing was, in the end, the speed. The speed of building stuff, the speed of communicating afterwards, or documentation.
What about you?
Yeah, maybe also the integration we already offer, so they do not need to take care how to connect to some data sources, for example. It's just available, just provided by us, and then they can put their Python code in, so in the workflow, and also they can schedule it, which is kind of also a nice thing. Of course, there are other technologies like Apache Airflow, but Knime is just there and also easy to use, so why not going for Knime, so in this case.
Just practically, do you see a lot of sharing yet? Do you see Python people packaging and starting to share with the rest of the community? I mean, no data scientists do this a lot in terms of, components and things, but do you see hardcore Python people starting to do this?
I don't know about starting to do this, but just to refer to this question of using Python, this is something that we already did and already used. So looking that the improvements is just kind of helping us to to adopt quickly.
Okay.
But we were already using it. Regarding really like sharing back to the community, this is maybe further step for us.
Okay.
We're still using it in
individual projects and things very well, but not yet sharing with the community. Any experience sharing? It's just interesting because we put so much work into trying to make sure the bundles are there automatically, et cetera, et cetera. We may just be a little ahead of the people using it.
I'm thinking about the Maslow's hammer principle. If you have only a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Yeah.
So I would say it's not 0-1.
Okay.
Not everybody should use only Knime, not everybody should use only Python. The question is, what is the problem you are solving? What is the community who shall use that? What's the platform where shall be operated? And if you can answer these questions, you have the technology which is the best for it.
Okay. Very good. Let me take questions from the audience. This is actually interesting. This is your chance to ask some of the experts about any aspect that you want. It would be really good if there were a few questions out there. It'd be nice to hear if it was similar to some of your experiences. Let's see let's see some hands. I think we've got some microphones running here. Oh, here's a question.
Okay, I'll stand up.
Oh, thank you. Yes, now I can see you. The lights are very bright. Thank you.
What is the #1 feature that you're missing in Knime right now?
Whoa.
Sorry, Knimers.
I need to think about it.
Very good question. Honestly speaking, I didn't solve probably the text area function missing, more the understanding of functions to be established by the users, honestly speaking.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for the hub for the IT compliance documentation part. This is where I'm really waiting for further solutions and offerings by Knime, because if you approach a head of tax, they are skeptical. What you're doing? Yeah. Is this what has been generated? Is this correct? Do I get trouble in the tax audit? How much it will cost? What is about the access for tax auditors in these solutions? All the nasty questions, you're sitting there and have given an answer. If you get the wrong answer, the communication is ended.
Okay.
So, and with this product, you would help me to convince more people to use ETL tools, especially here in Knime. This would be where I'm currently focused, but this is specific for tax.
So you see some light in the tunnel because it's
it's a trend now.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, please.
I mean, it's really a tough question. There are so many things you can think of, but I have like two things that popped in mind. One is the documentation of a workflow. When you're documenting it, you only can use text. You cannot use like images or adding stuff that can help, or even maybe attach a document. Because I see also, I don't know if it's from the audience at home, they ask a question about documentation, so it's also part of it.
Yeah. And that's the question down there. It's how do you make sure that all this is from the online audience. Hi everybody. How do you make sure that all, or at least the majority of developed applications are integrated in the enterprise in terms of documentation? What does it do? I think you've already started talking about that. There's more things to do, and you're seeing some things we're doing in Hub and with some of the things that might make it a little easier. And I think we all think, regardless of the tool, it's always a challenge, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. What's your favorite thing? What are you missing? What do you want to see?
Regarding this question, maybe first, so a little bit, I think we need to be carefully about not over-engineer it in the sense. I mean, Knime is still a self-service analytics low-code platform, and we're thinking about whole enterprise applications. Of course, I'm from a very large enterprise, and there are definitely applications which needs to be documented. But yeah, please do not overwhelm those self-service users. So let them get started, do the things, and then we do the professionalization. So I think this is somehow important.
That goes back to what you were saying about the two different types. There's going to be somewhere you do need to control, and somewhere it's not so critical.
Yeah, but to give you an example, if you build up a huge process to calculate transfer pricing, huge process. It's tax relevant, and by law in Germany, you have to have a process documentation, a system documentation, very detailed, that the tax auditor is able to understand it in a short period of time. However, he's doing that, but this is the law saying. And then I'm asking myself, how much did Access get this documented before? Speaking. But you have to have something, and I would say to have something in place which is not perfect is better than have nothing. And there's always a balancing between acceptance and risk, at my point of view.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. There are different levels to the Knime workflows you build. Don't take the playfulness out of it. If you go with a very simple workflow where you just have Excel in, CSV out or something, then you don't want to see that. You don't want to have that, I don't know, tracked in yet another Excel file and making sure that there's someone responsible for that. And for those workflows, for those processes where you have to have an overview, where you have to have liability, then I'm pretty sure you have these processes already and you have a very good process in place to take care of that. So it's just a different tool doing the same thing.
I think that goes back to the next question that came in as well. How do you take care of shadow IT? What you're saying sometimes is we're just going to some of it we're going to let it go because it's not critical, and then the rest of it we're going to try to control. Is shadow IT a problem anymore? I mean, I remember that concept from 20 years ago. People trying to get around the rules.
These discussions are still in place. Sometimes more, sometimes less.
Yeah.
Is this really a topic about shadow IT or about claimed responsibility?
Yeah.
At my point of view. You know, I started my career in taxation, studied taxation, later I studied informatics. So the IT guys saw me as tax guy, and the tax guy saw me as IT guy. I was in the middle, in between. I get blamed by both, so.
Yeah, that's true. I think this has been really, really, really interesting. I'm going to go ahead and shut the session down now because I think we could keep going on. I mean, they've got so much expert tips and tricks and things. I think you all are going to be around for just a little while afterwards for another half an hour. We've got a little bit of another networking if you can. Please, if you've got any question, don't be shy. Come and ask them. Come and ask someone from Knime. But I'd like to ask you, with a big round of applause, was that interesting? Thank you very much.